aespa's new title track is a unique mixture of many musical influences held together by core aespa sound elements and spiced up with a mysterious scale. Today we're exploring what makes aespa's new title track so spicy.
On first listen, aespa Spicy reminded us of a number of styles and songs. That's not too surprising considering how a lot of modern songwriting works.
When writing songs, songwriters utilize what we call references. Those are essentially songs they are trying to emulate an aspect of. This could be a specific element, such as a particular singing style for one section, or specific sound choices. However, it could also be more general and refer to the groove or even vibe. References are a great way to keep yourself focused on the final goal when songwriting and producing.
Sometimes the label will provide songs which would fit their artist, but oftentimes songwriters pick references themselves. Keep in mind that referencing can also happen unintentionally depending on which musical influences the writers have been exposed to during their lives.
We want to point out that we don't know which references were used for the aespa song. However, as we are both familiar with the 2000s sound, we thought it would be a fun exercise to try and reverse engineer the process. More importantly, however, we wanted to show you how you can also use references in your music making.
The first thing we hear in the song is the heavy, very distorted bass. It reminded us of a sound quite common for the 2000s.
We've spoken about hooks before, and once again we hear those in Spicy. The bass line is short and catchy, which is a very smart way of captivating the listener, and has been done across many eras and genres.
You want my A to the Z, but you won't. 어림없지 맞죠? Telling me what's been on your mind lately. I don't mind you speaking up.
The rhythm and flow of the verse top line is reminiscent of the playful raps common for that time too. These were often quite fun and even quite cheeky.
Tell me what you see when you look at me. Cause I am a 10 out of 10 honestly.
I hate to say it, but they play this damn song in every club. But it's me, so I'll show love. But it's me, so show me love. And when
But remember how we said that references can be much less specific and refer to a general vibe? A lot of songs in the 2000s would feature very gritty and dark verses and then a sudden uplifting chorus. In Spicy, we have this mood shift from the snappy verses and the A chorus into the much brighter B chorus.
I'm too spicy, I'm too spicy. Don't stop, let your mind, hey, bang bang, but chopper. I'm too spicy, yeah, I'm too spicy.
I'll get him hard, show him what I got. Can't read my, no, we can't read my poker face.
I lost you again.
come back to pick up away. Gotta get me out, I can't stay. Gotta feel the rush in my veins. I'm lonely. Gotta look for a party and dance with somebody tonight.
Might think that I won't make it on my own, but now I'm stronger than yesterday. Now it's nothing but a my way.
As we've said before, however, referencing does not mean copying. Having multiple sources of inspiration is great, but we should always make sure to leave something of our own in the song. And that's exactly what aespa do in Spicy.
While the catchy bassline is reminiscent of 2000s music, it's not the first time we hear strong bass in aespa songs. This helps tie the new concept together with their general sound.
The strong bass is not only typical for aespa, but for SM in general. This is not surprising at all, as all the names on the credits have created many of SM's hits too. So, while a new direction for aespa, Spicy fits perfectly in SM's overall discography.
Or if we wanted to look even further back,
One of the best parts of music making, however, is always bringing something new to your songs.
Let's
go back to the A chorus.
Cause I'm too spicy for your heart. Bring fire, 심장을 파고드는 너. I'm too spicy.
Interestingly, the bass line is not clearly in major, but also not clearly in minor. What's even more spicy is the vocal melody on top of the bass line.
The bass line contains a G, and the vocal melody goes to a C sharp. We like to look at the song in the key of E, but the notes G and C sharp in combination do not appear in either E major or E minor.
We've briefly mentioned before that there are multiple major and minor scales. We will elaborate on those in another video, but the one used here is called Dorian. Spicy is in the key of E, so what we're hearing here is E Dorian. This makes the melody a lot more interesting and mysterious sounding, or well, spicy.
But it actually gets even more interesting when we get to the B chorus.
The first chord we hear is the major 4 chord, and we can think of this chord as being either borrowed from the scale of E Dorian or E major, since both of these scales contain this chord. We are likely to assume we are still in Dorian, as that was the case in the A chorus. This is then followed by a major 6 chord. However, Dorian does not contain a major 6 chord. The potential scale this chord could come from is then the natural minor scale, in this case E minor. But we're not done here. The next chord is the major 1 chord, which likely comes from E major, since neither Dorian or minor contain a major 1. This chord is followed by a last chord, a major 3, which could either come from E Dorian or from E minor.
So what exactly happened here? The songwriters of Spicy utilized what we call borrowed chords. This is a technique where you borrow chords from the parallel scales. Parallel scales are the scales that share the same root note, in this case E. Assuming Spicy is in the key and scale of E minor, the parallel scales that the songwriters borrowed chords from are E Dorian and E major.
We're going to explore the topic of borrowed chords in more detail in our How to K-pop tutorial series, but borrowed chords are a very nice way to spice up a chord progression and make it sound more unique. In this case, it was utilized to lift up the energy and make the chord progression a lot brighter than it would have been if we only used chords from E minor.
As you can see, aespa Spicy is a unique blend of multiple influences, core aespa and SM elements, spiced up with a unique chord progression that utilizes multiple scales and even borrowed chords.
And this is why aespa Spicy is so spicy.
I'm too spicy, too spicy for you.